Okay, so I'll call us to order. Welcome. Thank you all for coming this evening. Hopefully we'll be lickety split, as they say. So our consent agenda this evening includes our previous minutes and a policy. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Emily. Discussion of the previous minutes and policies.
So I apologize. I thought this was only to go over. I didn't get an email that had the agenda. I didn't realize we were discussing any policy or anything beyond just these change orders on the Sheldon project. So I'm not sure how I missed the memo on that. I've been a little consumed with my daughter's surgery last week, so maybe that somehow missed me. So I don't feel like I can. I don't know what this policy is. I don't feel like I can vote on a policy that I haven't looked over. I looked over the change orders.
Yeah, we will give you a pass for this one time, Mary. But there was Doreen sent a message out like a week ago, and the policy is the inter-district elementary school transfer procedure. That's the one that we're discussing. Correct, Morgan?
That is correct. I mean, the minutes, I can't remember if this came through with any minutes. It must have been the June ones, right?
It did. Yep. There's minutes from the June 3rd meeting.
So hold on. Why are we doing such a significant kind of policy thing at not our regular board meeting?
The hope, I think, was that we wouldn't have to hold your July meeting because this and one item under board business were the only things that were sort of still outstanding for the summer. So the inter-district transfer procedures is not, it's not a policy, but it was the procedures that we discussed at the last meeting, which would sort of allow for those district transfers for people in the geographic anomalies where they had to drive through another town to get to their town of the school in their town of residence. So the folks up on Enosburg Mountain or at the end of your road.
And this vote tonight would is the kind of the final decision on this policy.
Well, it is because it's a procedure, so it doesn't actually have to go through the policy committee process. But we wanted to get something in place now. As a procedure, you guys can revisit this every board meeting if you'd like to. Hopefully, we won't do that, but it's something that can come up at any meeting.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's useful. I can present it if folks want to do that, and then we can sort of walk through it.
Morgan, maybe if you could elaborate on if there have been any changes since our discussion earlier this month.
I think we were just trying to capture the concerns that you had from the last meeting, which, my recollection was really around ensuring that we weren't going to screw up class sizes in either the sending district or the receiving district. We talked a little bit about the movement of money. So we captured, we think, what the board's intention was there, which is similar to the high school choice that exists between districts that have high schools. The town of residence still gets to count the kid. Obviously the town of enrollment is going to be responsible for educating the kid, and that's why we were concerned about preserving the class sizes so that the town of educating isn't going to incur any additional cost. And then the town that is educating would bill back for any student-specific extraordinary costs, like a one-on-one, whether they're special ed or regular ed. So specific costs like that. And I don't, if anybody remembers any other topics that we covered in the last meeting, I can skim it quickly and let you know, but I think those are the two main issues.
And Morgan, remind me, this is only for these, this small subset of families that are in these kind of unique geographical situations where
Exactly.
they're going to a school, one school, even though there is another much closer with it that is, part of the SU.
Absolutely correct. And I'll read the clause that we've designed, which we think covers it. It says students who are geographically closer by town or state highway to another school and have to drive through another town to get to their school of residence are eligible to make a request to the superintendent of schools to be allowed to attend a school outside of their school of residency within Franklin Northeast Supervisory Union. So what that would mean is, like the folks at the end of your hill, Mary, they have to drive through Montgomery to get to Richford, which is their school of residence. Folks who are on the South Richford Road, even if they're, maybe be closer by driving to Montgomery Elementary rather than Richford Elementary, they're not having to travel through Montgomery to get to their school of residence, so they wouldn't be eligible for this.
Morgan, I'm sorry, repeat that last part. Why would they not be eligible?
Because they do not have to drive through another town to get to Richford Elementary. So if you think of someone who lived like where Susie lives, when her kids were in elementary school, they may have been physically closer to Montgomery Elementary, but they didn't have to drive through Montgomery Elementary to get to Road, who actually live in Richford. They have to spend 5 miles on Montgomery roads before they can even get back into Richford to get to their school of residence.
So would be applicable to them.
To them, right.
And I suspect that the kids up on the Enosburg Mountain Road might be in the same situation as well because they head down West Hill.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a relatively small number of families for sure.
Exactly.
And the educating school is protected as far as extraordinary costs are concerned,
Correct.
above and beyond the average per pupil
Right.
cost.
And so, assuming that you approve this tonight, I've got a motion worded that I'll ask you to move and pass, and that spells that financial piece out specifically as well. Just trying to make it perfectly clear for when we're sorting this out 5 years from now and trying to remember what the intention of the board was.
Now, just to clarify the busing component, I mean, in the inter-district or in the intra-district policy, where people, we are allowing now a certain number of kids from to move around, there's no transportation provided. How about in this? Because, for instance, for Kate's kids on my road, there is a Montgomery school bus that's coming up to get my child, the Silva child. Even so,
Right.
Are they allowed to utilize the Montgomery bus on the Black Falls Road, or the kids on the Enosburg Mountain Road, if they choose to come to Montgomery, are they going to be getting on a bus on West Hill?
So the way the procedure is written, it says transportation is the responsibility of the student's family and will not be provided to students. I think when we get into the details there, we're going to find that it is less expensive for us to allow someone to transfer and deal with transporting them than it would be to deny the family that. Because right now, if we didn't have this policy, the folks at the end of your road, we would be needing to figure out a way to bus them from their house through Montgomery back up into Richford. And we're doing that right now with the folks on Enosburg Mountain Road.
Why would NMV be responsible for busing a Richford family?
They are not. I'm saying we've got additional routes just in general in the SU. So I think what the language is in here, it protects you from having to transport those kids. But the reality is that the folks at the end of your road, they're going to bring their kid down a quarter of a mile and hop on the bus if we're sending a bus up there anyway. If we weren't sending any bus up your road at all because of the mix of kids, then they would have to bring their kid to Montgomery Elementary, or at least down to a stop in the village.
Yeah. Now, that is a separate, I mean, the way that we are addressing the transportation issues for this policy is separate and distinct from the one within NMV where transportation is solely the responsibility of the family, the
Correct.
school choice, the choice
Yep.
policy. I mean, this
Yep.
is unique because
Yeah, they're written the
bus
same
would
way.
still
This
be
is a
right
little,
there.
right. And that's really the difference. The policies, I believe the language is the same in both, but in the one just within NMV, there's not going to be a situation where it makes any financial sense to change routes to move a kid from one of your 4 towns to another. In this case, overall, there may be a situation where it saves money or where the parent just needs to get their kid a little ways down the road and pick up a regular route.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, other questions, comments, or concerns about either the minutes or this policy or procedure text?
And just one more question. As I asked with the other policy, it's all good and well to kind of lay it out and try to kind of predict all the but I feel like my experience is we will inevitably have a situation arise that we could not have predicted and doesn't fit neatly into the box. So I assume there's always agency to revisit and tweak if we find that there's some sort of kind of, some consideration that we didn't make when we outlined all these kind of, the variables.
Right. You always have the authority to revisit your policies as a board, and the way this is written, it's not like it's an automatic right. That still is going through the superintendent to approve or deny. So if we run into
Right.
a situation where just on its face it doesn't make sense, but we haven't predicted how to get that into writing, Lynn would have the authority to deny that, and then I imagine we would quickly bring something back to you to clarify that for the future.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So what would be cleaner? Do you want, should we do one motion around just this policy and a separate one around the minutes?
I would do a motion approving the consent agenda, which is fine because that's how you worded it, and then I'll give you some language to consider for a motion, which will accept it and lay down some of the thoughts we discussed around the money piece.
Okay. So the motion on the floor around the consent agenda that some Emily made.
Yes.
Let's vote on that now. We'll do it by roll. Erin, you're the first board member I can see on my screen.
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
John, Mary. John, did you answer? No.
He's nodding.
Okay, that's close enough for me.
Good.
Mary,
Yes.
Kat,
Yes.
and then I think Miranda's off camera.
Yes.
I think that's all of us. And myself, Well done. Any reorganization to our agenda this evening, Morgan?
I don't think so.
Okay. And any visitors? I don't think so.
Nope, just Northwest Access.
Okay. And Morgan, you will field the superintendent's comment section.
Yep. So is that what's next?
That's what's next.
Okay, so there were no personnel items to be brought and no student items to be brought. And then the motion on the choice policy that we just discussed, we think should read a motion to allow students to transfer schools as per the inter-district choice procedure with no money exchanged except for student-specific excess costs.
Are we comfortable making that motion, folks? Does somebody want to make that motion?
I can make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Erin.
I'm
And-
sorry.
Sorry.
I'm the thorn in the conversation today. I have a question, Morgan.
Mhm.
So NMV is doing this. Is the Enosburg Richford district, do they have any similar geographical situations, and are they doing something like this as well?
So they are, I believe they've already approved it. But yeah, we need both sides to do it because those are the only, the two districts that we'd be swapping kids from. So we'll have both of you approve it. And
Okay,
my belief is that if you guys decide in the future or they decide in the future not to honor it any longer, it'll be defunct for both sides.
okay, it makes sense that really that needs to go hand in hand with both, you
Exactly.
know, the entire SU on board, both districts.
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, shall we vote? Erin,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
John?
Yes.
I can hear you. Thank you. Mary,
Yes.
Kat,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Lynn did not have any others. And all I am bringing to you tonight is the Sheldon construction project. Just to give you a general quick overview, things are proceeding well. There are a couple of issues that are still outstanding that I just want to tip you to, and we'll have more details for you as time goes on. And Christy, feel free to jump in at any point if you want. The first one is that when we demoed the walk-in cooler and the freezer, they found mold behind the walk-ins. The contractor and the architect asked us to bring in, asked us to do some testing on it. And when the testing came back, they recommended that it was professionally abated rather than the contractors just going in, pulling out sheetrock and tossing it in the dumpster. So we're going to be moving ahead on that, and that will be a bit of an added cost. When the siding came off on one side of the building, they had found evidence that there was moisture getting behind the siding. The architect and the clerk and the contractors have tracked it back to an issue with two roof valleys. So there's a standing seam roof, and where the two, relatively shallow panels meet, there's a valley. One of the two had some work done at some point in the past, so they clearly had identified a problem there. The other one had not been touched, but both showed some water, which they're guessing was backed up behind an ice dam and then leaked in. So we're getting quotes on fixing that in a more permanent way. Initially, we were going to come back with two possibilities. One would be to redo what they had done, maybe we're guessing a dozen years ago. And then a second one would be a quote for doing it the correct way. When we got some roofing contractors up there, they said that the way that had been done a dozen years ago wasn't going to work, and they weren't going to do that. And if anyone was going to do it, they would likely not warranty the work. So that piece is out there. And then the third one is around the gym floor. This was one of the areas where we abated the asbestos. We had some good news in that we don't feel like the crack needs to be dealt with structurally at all. It seems like it's been there since the beginning and is solid. The flooring subcontractor did some moisture testing of their own and claimed the moisture was too high in the floor and had some concerns about the asbestos abatement. Your clerk and the general contractor and the architect are both in disagreement with that. We've had additional tests done and we feel like it's in the range of what the flooring product needs. So we're in a bit of a staring contest at the moment with the subcontractor, and we're sort of bringing the batch of test results to the manufacturer. And the issue is that we don't want to put a gym floor down without it being warrantied. And my understanding from talking with some of the folks on the project is that with flooring subs, it's not unusual to start the process with them aggressively trying to make claims that would nullify any warranty work. So that's where we are with that. I expect in a couple of weeks we will have that sorted out. And I think other than that, things are moving along obviously quicker than we thought, since we're only now 4 days past the end of school and a big chunk of the work has been done. So that's the background. I don't know, Christy, if you want to add anything to that and those three things that we're watching.
No, I think you got it all. When I talked to the clerk, he said that he felt that things were going really well, except for those couple issues.
Okay. So tonight we're bringing two change orders to you, and I sent those to you by email. The first is new floor in the office area, and that's because we needed to do some additional tile abatement there once we got the contractor in. That was not included in the initial proposal. So there are two proposals for two different flooring types in there. We ran this by Christy. She wanted to go with option 2, which is slightly less money and I think infinitely easier to clean. And so the first motion, well, we can do this as a single motion, but that was PCO number 10, option 2, Jean Marie's authority to approve change orders away from the table is only $5,000, and this one is $84.37. The second purchase change order is around leveling the flooring in the locker rooms and the bathrooms. And again, if I'm explaining this wrong, Christy, please jump in. But when they, unlike in the gym floor, when they pulled up the tile in the locker rooms and the bathrooms, much of the subfloor came up with it. And so that's suggestive, I think, of them using something like a thin set or a weaker material under those tiles rather than the solid concrete that they used in the gym floor. So in order to put the new tile down in those areas, we're going to need to do some work on the subfloor there. And that is something that I would say it's not a total surprise, but it was nothing that we anticipated when we put the original documents out to bid. Again, there are two quotes here. They got quotes from two two separate subs, and we would recommend that you go with option one, which is the cheaper of the two from Barry Tile. So are there any questions on those two change orders?
I
just,
oh, go ahead, Kat.
I have a question about the change orders leading up to these. So there's been 9 change orders approved outside of, whoops, sorry.
You there?
So there's already been 9 change orders approved. So each of them under 5,000 because they've been approved outside of our meetings. Is that correct?
I think by my count, there's 8 that have been approved, and yes, that's exactly it. They were individually smaller.
Because, yeah, I was just curious, like, what are we up to now? Like, is this all throwing us over budget if we already have 8 or 9, you know?
So, sure. So when we approve these potential change orders, they will then eventually lump them into a solid single unit and put that in the contract. So we've already had about $6,000 that we've done that to. The ones that have been approved so far that haven't hit that contract are about another 10,000, and that's a mix of both additions and subtractions. So these two would add another 21,000 roughly. When we started the project, we had a contingency of, I believe it was around 70,000, 72,000. And as we make changes here, either through those change orders or changes that we make that are not part of that GC's contract. So these initial testings that we're doing on asbestos, as we incur those expenses, I reduce that from that contingency amount, which is the money that is in the budget for that reason. Right now, I'm guessing that that's about 67,000, and that would not yet include the 2 that we've brought to you tonight, and then the 10,000 that we've given them authority to do, but they have not changed their contract yet. So it's taken a bite out of that contingency, but you're still going to have around $50,000 in there. The hope is that once we get through the gym and the mold and the roofing issue, there's going to be enough left over there to sneak some security upgrades in. The reality is if those changes end up eating into this, we can either start looking at some of the finish work on the project and ask them to pull that out to keep it under contract, or we may also start looking at what of these changes can be justified in the general fund maintenance type work. And it may be a combination of both. I know there's one that we're sitting on to make some changes in the office space where Christy is. And if that contingency gets burned up in the next couple of weeks with the roof in the gym, what we may do is we may tell Spates, you're not going to do that as part of the project, and we'll have the the custodians do that work during the year out of the regular budget. So I don't know if that was too long or too short, but
Oh,
that's
no,
where we're at.
but just to clarify, though, you're saying we're down to 67, which is of what's been approved, and then there's one for 10, and then these 2 for about 20. So that's like bringing us down to 37-ish.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And as far as the demo goes, really digging into stuff where most problems arise, are they pretty much through all those tricky parts? Would you?
Yeah, I think that we've found all the problems. The mold is there's going to be some cost there, but it's nothing that I'm personally thinking is going to be that expensive. So the gym floor, ideally, we are going to come to an agreement with the subcontractor, maybe with some negotiation help from the manufacturer, and that potentially could go down to zero. We've actually got a floor credit there that we're going to be given because we didn't have to deal with patching the crack in any aggressive sort of way. So it's an unknown, but there's potential for that not costing any real amount of money. I think right now the changes that we need to make to the roof are potentially the most expensive, and we're hoping to have a quote on that in the next week or two.
Thank you.
Morgan, if we get just to kind of follow up with Kat's question, and that was a really helpful kind of overview for sure. And I understand you're kind of thinking ahead to if that kind of contingency amount continues to be drawn down by unexpected and somewhat costly developments. The roofing one is the one it seems like, well, we should be kind of braced for what that looks like. It's an unfortunate find for sure. But you said there are potentially savings that could be realized or ways to kind of stay within the budget with some of the kind of finishing details if this roofing situation ends up being very costly and kind of drains down the rest of the contingency money.
Right. So if they come back and they say the roof is going to be $75,000, and I'm just pulling that number out of the air, the next step is that Christy and I and the architect and the GC are going to sit down and they're going to say, okay, is there anywhere in this budget that we can save $40,000? I'll say in a way that makes sense, because really so far all the change orders we've brought you or we've approved so far, they're not mandatory, but none of it is discretionary. We've kind of been holding off on those, and that's I think a little bit different than the situation that we were in Berkshire. Lisa's not on, but in Berkshire, 6 years ago, the contract came in so much lower that some of the things that we'd cut out of the bid process, we were able to add back. I don't see us doing that here, but if the roofing does come back significantly higher than we think, we're going to look at either is there something that we can not do on the project, or is there something that we can do and put that in the that her maintenance budget for the year is trimmed, and it's the hope is that it's a relatively new building and a lot of parts, and so maybe she can save money in terms of the maintenance that we built in there.
And what about the reserve funds that each school kind of kept at merger? Can those funds be used for an overrun like this? Like if this roofing situation really pushes the budget?
So they cannot be used directly, but what the board could do in future years, at least, is you can propose using the funds in either Bakersfield or Berkshire or Montgomery's reserves to cover the bond payments for those projects. That's something that we've done in Berkshire a few years going. I don't think we've done it in Montgomery or Bakersfield. But that would be buying down the tax rate for future budgets. So that would be, I think, more relevant when we're having discussions about the FY22 budget than doing anything in this current year or the year that's starting in 8 days.
Yeah.
You could ask for authority from your voters to change the change the reserve funds so that they could be used for something other than their original purpose. And then that would take effect in March of 2021. But I, off the top of my head, I think that I would recommend against you doing that. And if, if we do end up in a place where we're looking for $30,000, I'd probably rather that you let Christy and I try to find that in the regular budget rather than opening that up.
Okay, other questions or comments? So you need a motion for each of these individually. That's correct, Morgan?
I don't. I would just need a motion to accept proposed change order number 10, option 2, and proposed change order number 11, option 1.
Somebody want to make that motion?
I can make it.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Okay, let us vote by roll. Aaron,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Kat,
Yes.
and Miranda.
Yes.
Great, thank you all. The thunder is rolling here, so let's move this party along.
All right. The only other thing that I want to put out to you, and I can certainly go either way on this, is that with these changes coming, specifically with the roof, but also potentially with the floor, I would anticipate that we're going to be in a situation where we need to have another meeting to have the board accept proposed change orders. I don't know if you wanted to consider increasing Jean Marie's authority to approve those away from the table. Currently, she can approve up to 5,000. Certainly on other projects, we've given the board chair much higher authority to go away from the table in the past in Franklin Northeast. I think we didn't do it because we didn't see that there was going to be a lot of potential for adding bells and whistles to the project. But I would say that you guys need to be comfortable either pulling together a quickie meeting in 2 weeks when we have a better idea of what those roofing costs look like, or you can give Jean Marie greater authority either to a specific dollar amount or to an amount not to concede the contingency fund.
I'm okay with having a brief meeting. I just feel with our contingency pot really kind of getting, lower and lower. And I would feel bad to put Jean Marie in a position where she feels she should approve. But I'm okay with getting together. If it's a quick meeting, I think it makes sense, at least from my perspective.
Mind doing a meeting. Not that I don't trust any of you. I think you're doing a great job. I'm thinking with our stakeholders, like we probably should just make sure that we're having everybody's on the same page kind of discussions.
Jeez, you're making me feel like I'm doing a terrible job, guys.
You're doing an amazing job, Jean Marie.
No,
I
I agree with Aaron completely. I think that there's a lot of eyes on this as our first big project as a unified district, and it's, if we can squeeze out a half an hour to get something like this done together, it makes more sense.
So that's all I
planning
have
for
then.
Aruba with the cash.
Right. That's all that I have. So I think you can go to board business.
Okay, and there's something under board business, which is future agenda items. We have nothing at this point. And recognizing retirements in NMV. We talked a little bit about this last time, I think. I thought we made a motion or had thoughts to leave it up to the traditions of the school buildings, but I could be wrong. Aaron, did you have
We were starting that conversation and it was late, and I think that we left it at, we would come back to it to talk about how to bring equity across the district. But I don't feel like it's anything that we need to solve. Like, this would be for next August, so, or next June. I'm fine tabling it.
Anybody else?
I would prefer to table that right now. I think we've got time. I think we've dealt with the retirements for this year, and I agree, some sort of hybrid, letting the schools continue their traditions and achieving kind of equity as far as kind of financial kind of costs associated with gifts or whatever makes sense. But I don't know, for me, I don't have a huge appetite in the moment to dive into this. It doesn't feel urgent.
Yeah, I think we have plenty of time, and we could maybe put this for like October or something. I don't want to put it so far out that we forget about it, and then at the, in June, we're remembering to have this discussion again, but I do think we don't have to make any decisions about it now. So.
Sounds good. I will let Lynn know that.
Okay. And that's all. Before we all say goodnight, did we want to, Morgan, do you want us to try to pick a date to meet again? Or do you want to wait until you have some quotes from the roofers?
Let's play it by ear. If I can swing it on your regular board meeting night for July, I will. I'm feeling that might be a little soon, but let's just play it by ear.
Okay. Okay. Can I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Mary. Everybody give me a thumbs up if you'd like to adjourn. Good night, all. Thank you